Hey everybody! Happy November, which means daylight savings time. I think I said it wrong. Daylight saving time. It's hard to actually say it correctly. Is upon us, and I don't let it stress me out too much because my kids are older now and they adapt pretty quickly. And even when they were younger, they weren't the kiddos that were super duper sensitive to time change. But there are many children who are sensitive to time change, especially the younger ones. And so I wanted to just tell you my thoughts on daylight saving time in the fall and how to handle it. So if you have a younger child, generally, under 1, or you have a kiddo who's just really sensitive to their wake windows, to time changes, maybe if you travel even just an hour to a different time zone, they're sensitive to that, then I would just actually start now and begin just gradually moving their bedtime late because let's say your kiddo is used to going to bed at 7, that's going to soon be 6 o'clock. They're going to be tired by 6 o'clock on Sunday night. And so just now you could start, with instead of a 7 o'clock bedtime, you could do 7:15 for a few nights, and then you could go to 7:30. And so by the time Sunday comes around, you'll be, right on track. And moving in the small 15-minute increments will generally allow you to make those changes without a super duper overtired child who is then going to have other sleep challenges. So depending on your kiddo, you can move faster or slower. You could do 5 minutes every day. You could do 15 minutes. And if your kiddo did fine with that, you can do another 15 the next day, or you can do 15 minutes every few days. So you can kind of do it with what works for your family, what you have going on this week, and also how sensitive your kiddo is to change. So that's for the younger kiddos or even the older toddlers who are sensitive to wake windows. Another one, if you have a kiddo who has a late bedtime, so is going to bed later than you actually want them to, let's say you have a kid that's going to bed at 9 o'clock, boom, this is a great time to move their bedtime to 8 o'clock without really even doing anything. So if you have a kid that goes to bed at 9 and they're tired by 8 o'clock, you just need to get your act together and get them to bed going earlier, then I would say this is more about you figuring out what does your evening look like. Is it possible for you to rearrange some things so you can get your kiddo to bed earlier? And your kiddo's sleep isn't going to be affected. It's more about you need to set into place your evening routines, when do we start bedtime routine? Okay, if he usually goes to bed at 9 and it takes 45 minutes for bedtime routine, and we want bedtime to be 8, then we need to start bedtime routine at 7:15. Is that doable for us? What does that mean? Does that mean that we need to, put dinner on the table earlier? Or does that mean we just need to have less playtime in the evening? So think through those things. I would say that's more of a parent shift rather than a kiddo shift. It's a great opportunity to start the earlier bedtime routine without having to affect your kiddo's sleep. This is a great chance to capitalize on that. And then there are the kiddos who have early morning wakings, like let's say they're just a 5:30 waker, that might never change. There are some kiddos who are early morning wakers and they're rested and they're ready to go for the day. But if your kiddo goes to bed, if they're an early to bed kiddo, like 7 o'clock, 7:15, even 7:30, you might be able to move their bedtime a tad later and maybe get a tad later waking in the morning. So if you have a kiddo who goes to bed late, like 8 o'clock, which is still fine, I probably wouldn't push their bedtime much later. But if you have a kiddo who goes to bed 7, 7:15, even 7:30, you can consider bumping it a half hour and see if they will wake up a half hour later. You have to see. Every kiddo is different. But the reason I mention that right now is because this is a great time to do that, because if you're already moving your bedtime, 15 minutes at a time later, keep going for another 15 or 30 minutes and see if it'll affect their wake up time. When you do this, I would give it at least a week, if not longer, for their body to shift and adjust to see if it helps. And if it doesn't, the good news is you can go, right back to what your bedtime used to be, to, get your kiddo to bed earlier so they're at least getting the full amount of sleep. But I would say this is also a great time to give that a try. You're already adjusting bedtimes, adjust another 15 or 30 minutes, or if you have a really early bedtime, you might even go a little bit longer. So two great things to capitalize on are the kiddos who need an earlier bedtime and they're actually tired earlier. You just need to get your affairs in order in the evening, or a kiddo who wakes really early. This is a great time to just try out a slightly later bedtime to see if it will help, but make sure you give enough time. I would say about 2 weeks to see if that helps. And then the other thing that I would say is I know the kids that wake early, like 6 a.m., is soon going to be 5 a.m. What I would tell you is hang in there. The kids don't like daylight savings time either. I mean, they didn't make it up, So, yeah, it's frustrating to wake up at 5 a.m., but it's going to take a little bit of time for their body to adjust. Try and be patient. Capitalize on the early morning, time on the floor. My son was an early riser, just kind of at baseline. He was rested and ready to go at like 5:45. And at first I was like, no, because I like to sleep in. But this is when he was a baby. But you know what? I just embraced it, and we ended up having some really great quality floor playing time in the morning before I would go off to work. And so that actually ended up being some nice time. So embrace it for a couple weeks. It will get back to what it was. Be patient with yourself and with your kiddo. And shoot me an email. Let me know how things are going in general. I'd love to hear from you guys. Bye.